Sunday, July 16th, 2023, 3:47 p.m. Briarwood Suburbs. Garage unit number 12. You're not seriously keeping this, are you? I muttered, holding up a grimy jar filled with unidentifiable metal bits. The sticky label read, Dad's '88 Mustang screws. The car's been gone for decades, and so should this. The silence in the garage was broken only by the buzz of cicadas outside. I was alone, sorting through the clutter of my late father's storage unit. Dust motes danced in the light filtering through the cracked garage door, which sat partially open to let in the humid summer air. My phone buzzed on the workbench. I glanced at it. Darren's name popped up with a text. Everything okay? I'll be back from the hardware store soon. I frowned. Darren was supposed to be helping me, but his quick trip to grab supplies had stretched into an hour. Shaking my head, I tossed the jar into the donate pile. As I reached for another box, voices drifted through the thin garage wall. They were faint, but distinct. My brows furrowed. The storage units were mostly empty this time of year. Who would be hanging around? Curiosity tugged at me. Quietly, I edged toward the side door that opened into the narrow alley between the storage rows. The voices became clearer, low but urgent. One of them stopped me cold. I can't keep doing this, Darren, a woman whispered. It was Vanessa. My breath caught in my throat. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear the reply. You're overthinking it, Darren said, his voice maddeningly calm. We've been careful. No one knows. I feel like someone knows, Vanessa shot back. Ethan's been asking questions. What if... Relax, Darren interrupted. You're too paranoid. He doesn't have a clue. I peeked around the corner, my pulse hammering in my ears. The sight of them hit me like a punch to the gut. Darren, my husband of 25 years, stood barely a foot away from Vanessa, my son Ethan's wife. Her hands were on his chest, his fingers brushing her arm. It wasn't just intimate, it was practiced, as if this had been going on for a long time. My knees nearly buckled. For 05 p.m., same day I didn't confront them. I don't know why. Instead, I slipped back inside the garage, my heart racing. By the time Darren returned 15 minutes later, holding a bag of screws and a smug smile, I had already composed myself. Find anything interesting? He asked, placing the bag on the workbench and wiping sweat from his brow. Just junk, I replied evenly, tossing most of it. His eyes lingered on me for a moment longer than usual, as if sensing something was off, but I didn't flinch. Monday, July 17th, 2023, 7:23 p.m. Briarwood Estates, Helen's kitchen. The next day, the tension in our home was unbearable. Ethan and Vanessa had come over for dinner, as they did every Monday, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Vanessa's laugh grated on me. It was too perfect, too innocent. She leaned across the table to offer Ethan a bite of her dessert, her gold bracelet glinting in the soft light. Darren, seated across from them, gave her a fleeting glance I wouldn't have noticed a week ago. I'll get more coffee, I said, pushing my chair back abruptly. My hands were trembling as I reached for the coffee pot on the counter. Ethan's voice broke through the fog in my mind. Mom, you okay? You've been quiet tonight. I turned, forcing a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. Vanessa stood suddenly, her chair scraping against the tile. I'll help, she said, her tone overly bright. She followed me into the kitchen, her heels clicking softly. Are you sure you're all right? She asked, her voice low. I froze, gripping the counter. The audacity of her concern nearly made me laugh. Why wouldn't I be? I replied without turning around. Just checking, she said quickly. You seem stressed. I finally turned, meeting her wide-eyed gaze. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt there, but it was gone in an instant. I'm fine, I said, my voice steady. Let's get the coffee back to the table. Tuesday, July 18th, 2023, 2:11 a.m. Helen and Darren's bedroom. I couldn't sleep. Darren's soft snores filled the room, oblivious to my turmoil. The clock on the nightstand glared back at me, the red digits burning into my brain. I reached for his phone, sitting face down on the nightstand. My hands shook as I turned it over. It was locked, of course, but just as I was about to put it back, a notification lit up the screen. Vanessa, can we talk tomorrow? I need to see you. The bile rose in my throat. My grip tightened on the phone as I debated waking him up and throwing it in his face. Instead, I set it back down carefully, quietly. I needed a plan. Wednesday, July 19th, 2023, 3 p.m., Cafe Bloom. Downtown Briarwood. I met a private investigator the next day. Carl Thompson, a wiry man in his 50s with a no-nonsense attitude, slid into the booth across from me. "What's the situation?" he asked, pulling out a small notepad. I hesitated, glancing around the bustling cafe. "I need proof," I said finally. "My husband and daughter-in-law. They're having an affair." Carl didn't flinch. "Do you have any evidence so far?" I nodded, recounting the incident in the garage and the text I had seen. Carl scribbled notes, his expression unreadable. "Give me a week," he said. "I'll find what you need." Saturday, July 22nd, 2023, 10:47 a.m. Helen's living room. The photos arrived faster than expected. Darren and Vanessa, entering a hotel hand in hand. Texts full of endearments and plans for secret getaways. My hands trembled as I flipped through the stack of evidence. But one text stood out. "Vanessa, we need to tell Ethan soon. I can't keep this up forever." The words made my blood run cold. What exactly did she mean? Just then, Ethan's voice called from the foyer. "Mom, are you home?" I shoved the photos into a drawer, forcing a calm expression. "In here." He entered, his easy smile faltering as he took in my pale face. "You sure you're okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," I lied. But deep down, I knew the ghost haunting this house wasn't mine. It was his. Sunday, July 23rd, 2023, 1:30 p.m., Briarwood Suburbs. Helen's backyard. "Are you avoiding me?" Ethan's voice carried over the sound of the wind rustling through the oak trees in my backyard. He stood near the porch, hands shoved deep in his jeans pockets, his brows knitted in concern. I fumbled with the garden shears in my hands, clipping the same rose stem twice. "Of course not," I said, not meeting his gaze. "I've just been distracted." "You've been weird all week, Mom," he pressed, stepping closer. "Is it Dad? Did something happen?" "Yes, something happened," I thought. "He betrayed you. He betrayed us." But instead of speaking, I waved him off. "It's nothing, really. Just stress." Ethan didn't look convinced, but he let it drop, muttering something about Vanessa meeting him at the cafe later. Her name was like a knife twisting in my chest. 4:45 p.m., Briarwood Cafe Bloom. It wasn't a coincidence I showed up at the cafe where Vanessa was supposed to meet Ethan. I needed to see her, needed to understand how she could sit across from my son and look him in the eye after what she had done. The cafe was bustling as usual. I spotted her immediately, sitting at a corner table with her phone in hand. But Ethan wasn't there. Vanessa's eyes darted around nervously before settling on someone entering the cafe. My heart dropped. Darren. I grabbed a menu off a nearby table, holding it up like a shield as Darren slid into the seat across from her. Their conversation was animated but tense, their voices too low to hear over the din. I caught Darren's hand brushing hers across the table and felt my stomach churn. A waitress approached them, and Vanessa flinched as if startled. Her body language screamed guilt. Darren, on the other hand, looked perfectly at ease, like he had nothing to hide. When the waitress left, Darren leaned in closer, his voice rising just enough for me to catch his words. "You need to keep it together," he said sharply. "You're the one who wanted this." Vanessa's face crumpled. "I didn't want this. I wanted—" She trailed off, tears brimming in her eyes. Darren sighed, looking exasperated. "We'll figure it out. Just don't do anything stupid." I couldn't watch anymore. Gripping the menu tightly, I left the cafe, my mind racing with questions. What was Vanessa afraid of? What was Darren pressuring her to do? Monday, July 24th, 2023, 9:10 p.m., Briarwood Estates. Helen's living room. The photos sat on the coffee table between Darren and me, a silent accusation that filled the space with suffocating tension. How long? I asked, my voice like ice. Darren looked at the photos, then at me, his jaw tightening. It's not what it looks like. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, really? Because it looks like my husband and my daughter-in-law have been sneaking around behind my son's back. He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. It's complicated. I slammed my hand on the table, making him jump. What's complicated about keeping your hands off Ethan's wife? It's not, he hesitated, searching for words. She's the one who started this. My blood boiled. Oh, so now you're the victim? Give me a break, Darren. You're a grown man. You could have said no. I did, he shot back, his voice rising. At first. But she kept pushing, and before I knew it, he trailed off, looking away. You disgust me, I whispered. For the first time, Darren looked genuinely shaken. Helen, listen. If Ethan finds out about this, it'll destroy him. We have to think about, don't you dare. I cut him off, my voice trembling with rage. Don't you dare try to make me complicit in your lies. Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, 8:30 a.m., Ethan's apartment. I knocked on Ethan's door, my heart pounding. I hadn't slept all night, torn between the urge to tell him the truth and the fear of what it would do to him. Mom, Ethan said, opening the door. What are you doing here? Can I come in? He stepped aside, looking confused. Sure. The apartment was neat and cozy, filled with small touches that screamed Vanessa's influence. Soft throw pillows, framed photos, a vase of fresh flowers on the dining table. I sat on the couch, clutching my purse tightly. Ethan, I need to talk to you about something important. He frowned, sitting across from me. You're scaring me. What is it? Before I could answer, the front door opened. Vanessa walked in, carrying a bag of groceries. She froze when she saw me. Mom, she said, her voice wavering. The air in the room grew heavy as Ethan looked between us, confusion turning to suspicion. What's going on? I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Vanessa set the groceries down carefully, her hands trembling. I think I'll let Vanessa explain, I said finally, standing up. Ethan looked at her, his expression darkening. Vanessa? Explain what? Vanessa's face crumbled as tears spilled down her cheeks. Ethan, I'm so sorry. Wednesday, July 26th, 2023, 10:15 p.m. Briarwood Estates. Helen's bedroom. Ethan hadn't called. Not since Vanessa's confession tore through their lives like a hurricane. Darren hadn't come home either, though I didn't care. Let him rot wherever he was. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. We need to talk. There's something you don't know. My chest tightened. What more could there possibly be? Thursday, July 27th, 2023, 12:30 p.m. Briarwood Park. Ethan's face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed as he sat across from me at a secluded park bench. Vanessa told me everything, he said, his voice hollow. I swallowed hard. I'm so sorry, Ethan. He shook his head. You don't understand. It's worse than you think. I frowned. Worse? How? He hesitated, then leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. Vanessa didn't just cheat on me with Dad. She's been blackmailing him. My breath caught. What? Ethan nodded grimly. She found out something about him, something from before they even met. She used it to get money, favors, everything. And now, he paused, his jaw tightening. Now what? I urged. She's pregnant, he said, his voice breaking, and she doesn't know if it's mine or his. The world tilted as his words sank in. The cracks in my family weren't just fractures. They were gaping chasms, threatening to swallow us all. Friday, July 28th, 2023, 7:45 p.m. Briarwood Estates. Helen's kitchen. The weight of Ethan's revelation pressed down on me like a boulder. Pregnant. Blackmail. My son was a wreck. My husband a liar. And Vanessa was far more dangerous than I ever imagined. I stood at the sink, gripping the counter as the water ran over the plate in my hand. Darren sat at the kitchen table, obliviously scrolling through his phone. The sight of him made my stomach turn. "We need to talk," I said, turning off the faucet. My voice was steady, but inside, I was barely holding on. He looked up, his brow furrowing. "Now? Can it wait?" "I'm in the middle of—" "No, it can't wait," I snapped. His eyes widened slightly, and he set his phone down. "All right, what's going on?" I didn't sit down. "Vanessa's pregnant." His face froze, the color draining from his cheeks. For once, Darren's charm and composure failed him. I didn't know." "You didn't know?" I hissed, leaning forward. "She's been blackmailing you, Darren. She told Ethan everything." "What?" His voice cracked, panic flashing in his eyes. "She told him, yes. All of it." I interrupted, my voice rising. "The affair, the manipulation, and now this pregnancy bombshell. I want to know what the hell she has on you that's so damning you'd risk destroying our family to keep it quiet." Darren's hands trembled as he ran them through his hair. "It's complicated. Uncomplicated." He hesitated, then finally broke. "It's from years ago, before we got married. I was involved in some shady business deals. Nothing criminal, but enough to ruin my reputation if it ever came out." I narrowed my eyes. "And Vanessa found out how?" He looked away, shame etched into his features. "I confided in someone years ago, a mutual friend of hers. I guess it made its way to her." I exhaled sharply, trying to process this new betrayal. Darren's recklessness, Vanessa's cunning. It all painted a horrifying picture. Saturday, July 29th, 2023, 10:10 a.m., Vanessa's apartment. I didn't call ahead. I didn't want to give Vanessa the chance to prepare some polished excuse. She opened the door reluctantly, her face pale and drawn. "Helen," she said, her voice tight. "This isn't a good time." "Too bad," I said, pushing past her into the living room. The space was eerily quiet, the blinds drawn. Ethan wasn't here. Good. This conversation was going to be ugly. Vanessa folded her arms, her composure slipping. "What do you want?" "I want the truth," I said, stepping closer. "No more lies, no more games. How long have you been blackmailing Darren?" Her jaw clenched, and she looked away. "That's between Darren and me." "Not anymore," I snapped. "You've dragged Ethan into this mess. He deserves to know exactly who he married." Her eyes flicked back to me, anger flashing in their depths. "Don't act like you're innocent in all this. You've been looking the other way for years, pretending your perfect little family didn't have cracks." I froze, her words striking a nerve. "What are you talking about?" She gave a bitter laugh. "Ethan's not as clueless as you think. He's known something was off with Darren for a while now. Why do you think he's been working late so much? Or why he started digging into your family finances?" My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Ethan isn't just a victim in this," Vanessa said coldly. "He's playing his own game." Saturday, July 29th, 2023, 4:30 p.m., Ethan's office. I drove straight to Ethan's office, my mind racing. Vanessa's accusation rattled me. Was Ethan hiding something too? When I arrived, his assistant waved me through, sensing the urgency in my demeanor. Ethan looked up as I entered, his face betraying a mix of surprise and dread. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I closed the door behind me, crossing my arms. "We need to talk. And don't lie to me, Ethan. What's going on with you and Vanessa?" He stiffened, his expression guarded. "I told you everything already." "No, you didn't," I said sharply. "Vanessa told me you've been digging into family finances. She made it sound like you're not as innocent as I thought. So, I'll ask again. What's going on?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's complicated." I slammed my hands on his desk, making him jump. "Stop saying that. Just tell me the truth." Ethan hesitated, then finally spoke. "Vanessa and we've been having problems for a while. I found out about the affair months ago, but I didn't say anything because I wanted to gather evidence. I wanted leverage. My breath caught. Leverage for what? To divorce her without losing everything, he admitted. She's been siphoning money from my accounts, Mom. Thousands. And when I confronted her about it, she threatened to expose Dad's secrets if I didn't back off. My mind reeled. Ethan wasn't just a victim. He'd been orchestrating his own counterattack. Why didn't you come to me? I asked softly. He shook his head. Because I didn't want you to get hurt. I thought I could handle it on my own. But now it's spiraling out of control. Sunday, July 30th, 2023, 8 p.m., Briarwood Park. Picnic Pavilion. We arranged a meeting. Me, Ethan, Darren, and Vanessa. Neutral ground, no distractions. The park was quiet at this hour, the fading sunlight casting long shadows across the pavilion. Vanessa arrived last, her face pale but defiant. She took a seat across from Darren, her gaze sharp as a blade. This ends now, I said, breaking the tense silence. No more lies, no more manipulation. We're putting everything on the table. Vanessa scoffed. You think you can just fix this with a little intervention? It's not that simple, Helen. I don't care how complicated it is, I shot back. You've destroyed enough. It's time to face the consequences. Darren looked down at his hands, guilt etched into his features. Ethan, on the other hand, stared at Vanessa with an intensity one hadn't seen before. You're not getting away with this, Ethan said coldly. The money, the lies, the blackmail, it's over. I've already filed for divorce, and my lawyers are ready to fight. Vanessa's composure cracked. You think you can just throw me away? After everything we've been through? You threw me away the moment you slept with my father. Ethan shot back, his voice shaking with anger. Vanessa turned to Darren, desperation in her eyes. Are you really going to let them do this to me? Darren didn't respond. For the first time, Vanessa looked genuinely frightened. You'll regret this, she hissed, standing abruptly. All of you will. She stormed off, leaving a tense silence in her wake. As I looked at Darren and Ethan, I realized this wasn't the end. Vanessa wasn't done with us. Not yet. Monday, July 31st, 2023, 2:45 a.m. Briarwood Estates. Helen's bedroom. I jolted awake to the sound of shattering glass. My heart leapt as I scrambled out of bed, the adrenaline surging before my brain could catch up. A crash echoed from downstairs. Grabbing my phone, I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. There's someone in my house, I whispered to the dispatcher, my voice trembling. Stay on the line, she said calmly. Officers are on their way. I crept to the top of the stairs. The dim glow of a flashlight danced erratically across the living room walls. A figure moved below, female, judging by the silhouette. My breath caught. Vanessa, what the hell is she doing? I murmured under my breath. Ma'am? The dispatcher asked. It's my daughter-in-law, I whispered. She's breaking into my house. Vanessa was muttering to herself, her voice too low to make out. Then she threw something heavy across the room. Another crash. My stomach sank. Officers are pulling up now, the dispatcher said. The sound of approaching sirens pierced the night air, and Vanessa froze. I stepped back into the shadows as she darted toward the back door. But the police were faster. Seconds later, I heard shouts outside, followed by a scuffle. By the time I dared to go downstairs, Vanessa was gone, handcuffed and loaded into the back of a patrol car. Monday, July 31st, 2023, 9 a.m. Briarwood Police Department. I want to press charges, I told the officer, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. Ethan stood beside me, his face pale and drawn. Darren hadn't come, claiming he needed time to process. Mom, are you sure? Ethan asked hesitantly. She broke into my house and destroyed my property. I snapped. This isn't just a family squabble anymore. She's dangerous. Ethan sighed but didn't argue. Vanessa had crossed a line too far this time, and we both knew it. Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, 11:15 a.m. Helen's living room. The tension between Ethan and Darren was unbearable. Darren paced near the window while Ethan sat stiffly on the couch, his arms crossed. I stood between them, trying to keep the conversation from exploding into chaos. "You left me to handle her alone," Ethan accused Darren, his voice cold. "You should have been there last night." "What would you have me do?" Darren shot back. "Throw myself into another argument? She's unhinged, Ethan." "And whose fault is that?" Ethan barked, standing. "Stop it." I snapped, raising my voice for the first time. Both men turned to me, startled. "This isn't about blaming each other. It's about fixing the damage she's done before it destroys us all." Darren scoffed. "You think pressing charges will fix this? She's pregnant, Helen. Do you want her to have a criminal record when that child is born?" "Whose child is it, Darren?" I countered sharply. "Yours or Ethan's?" Darren's silence spoke volumes. "I thought so," I said bitterly. Ethan's fists clenched. "You don't even know if it's yours, do you?" "No," Darren admitted, his voice barely audible. Ethan shook his head in disgust and stormed out of the room. Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023, 3 p.m., Briarwood Medical Center. The paternity test was Darren's idea, though Ethan reluctantly agreed. We all met at the hospital, the atmosphere so tense you could cut it with a knife. Vanessa sat apart from us, flanked by her lawyer. Her face was a mixture of anger and defiance. She didn't acknowledge any of us, but I caught her shooting Darren a fleeting glance. The test was over quickly, swabs taken from all parties involved. As we left the room, Vanessa finally spoke. "This won't change anything," she said, her voice cold. "You'll still regret this, Helen." I stopped, turning to face her. "The only thing I regret is trusting you," I said firmly. "You had a choice, Vanessa. You chose to destroy this family." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. Friday, August 4th, 2023, 10:30 a.m. Briarwood Estates. Helen's kitchen. The results arrived 2 days later, delivered in a sealed envelope. Darren, Ethan, and I sat around the kitchen table, the envelope lying unopened between us. "You should do it," Darren said, avoiding our gazes. Ethan scoffed. "Of course you want Mom to do it. You don't want to face what's inside." I ignored their bickering and picked up the envelope. My hands trembled as I tore it open and unfolded the document. The words hit me like a freight train. Paternity test results. Probability of paternity. Darren 0% probability of paternity. Ethan 99.9%. I exhaled sharply, relief mingled with a strange sadness. "It's yours, Ethan," I said, sliding the paper across the table. He snatched it up, his eyes scanning the results. When he looked up, his expression was unreadable. "So what now?" he asked. Sunday, August 6th, 2023, 6 p.m. Briarwood Park. Picnic Pavilion. We met Vanessa at the same pavilion where everything had unraveled weeks ago. She was composed, her lawyer by her side, but I saw the cracks in her facade. "I'm keeping the baby," she said bluntly, "and I expect Ethan to step up." Ethan shook his head. "I'll support the child, but you and I are done. My lawyers will make sure of that." Her gaze flicked to Darren. "And you? Nothing to say?" Darren's expression was cold. "I made a mistake. I won't make any more." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "You're all so self-righteous. As if this family wasn't broken long before I got here." "Maybe it was," I admitted, "but we'll repair it. Without you." For the first time, Vanessa looked shaken. She stood abruptly, her lawyer following. "This isn't over," she said before walking away. Monday, August 7th, 2023, 8:45 p.m. Briarwood Estates. Helen's living room. Ethan and I sat on the couch, a quiet understanding settling between us. "Do you think she'll come back?" he asked softly. "She might try," I said, "but we're stronger now. She won't win." Ethan nodded, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." I reached over, squeezing his hand. "We'll get through this. Together." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The pieces of our shattered family weren't fully mended, but we were on the path to healing. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Friday, August 11th, 2023, 7:15 p.m. Briarwood Courthouse. The courtroom buzzed with quiet murmurs as people filed in. Vanessa sat at the defendant's table, her lawyer whispering furiously in her ear. She looked composed, but I could see the tension in her rigid posture, the way her fingers tapped against the table. Ethan sat beside me, his expression unreadable. Darren was conspicuously absent, choosing, as usual, to avoid any situation that required accountability. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. This wasn't just about the restraining order I'd filed after her break-in. Vanessa had countersued, claiming defamation and emotional distress. Her gambit was clear. If she couldn't win the moral high ground, she'd use the legal system to strike back. 2 hours later, Ms. Mitchell, the judge, addressed Vanessa. Based on the evidence presented, including witness statements, financial records, and police reports, it's clear that your actions were calculated and malicious. The court grants the restraining order and denies your countersuit. Vanessa's face was a mask of fury, but she held her composure as the gavel fell. The legal battle might have ended, but I knew this wasn't the last we'd see of her. Sunday, August 13th, 2023, 2 p.m. Briarwood Estates. Helen's backyard. The backyard was filled with laughter and sunlight. Ethan had insisted on a family barbecue, hoping to create some semblance of normalcy. Darren had shown up, though his presence felt more like an afterthought than a contribution. Ethan manned the grill while I set the table. For the first time in weeks, the atmosphere felt lighter. "So, how's work?" Darren asked, breaking the silence between us. "Fine," I replied curtly, not looking up from the plates. He sighed. "Helen, I know I've messed up, but..." I cut him off. "This isn't the time or place, Darren." Before he could respond, Ethan called out, "Food's ready." The conversation was shelved, for now. Tuesday, August 15th, 2023, 8:30 p.m., Briarwood Estates. Helen's bedroom. I was tidying up when my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but this isn't over." My stomach twisted. It could only be Vanessa. I stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it. She wanted a reaction, and I wouldn't give her one. Thursday, August 17th, 2023, 11 a.m. Briarwood Cafe Bloom. I met Carl, the private investigator, for what I hoped would be the final chapter in this saga. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Everything you asked for," he said. "And then some." Inside were detailed reports, financial statements, and surveillance photos. Carl had uncovered Vanessa's attempts to siphon more money, not just from Ethan, but from Darren as well. There were also emails hinting at her connection to an older scandal involving Darren's shady business dealings. "She's been planning this for years," Carl said grimly. "She's not going to let it go easily." I nodded, my resolve hardening. Vanessa had underestimated me. Friday, August 25th, 2023, 6:30 p.m., Briarwood Community Hall. The community meeting was packed. Neighbors whispering about the recent drama surrounding Vanessa and Darren. Rumors had spread like wildfire, fueled by social media and whispers at the local diner. When I stepped up to speak, the room went silent. "My family has been through a lot recently," I began, my voice steady. "But I've learned one thing. Secrets have a way of destroying everything you hold dear. And the only way to heal is to confront them head-on." I wasn't just addressing the community. I was addressing myself. Saturday, August 26th, 2023, 9 a.m., Briarwood Park. Ethan met me at the park, his expression lighter than it had been in weeks. "Mom," he said, sitting beside me on the bench, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about confronting things." I looked at him, waiting. "I've decided to focus on the baby," he said. "I'll co-parent with Vanessa, but that's it. No more manipulation, no more drama. Just the kid." A wave of relief washed over me. "That's the right choice," I said softly. He nodded. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." Monday, September 4th, 2023, 10 a.m. Briarwood Estates. Helen's living room. The house was quiet again, the chaos of the summer finally settling into memory. Darren had moved out the week before, leaving a note on the kitchen counter. "I need time to figure out who I am. I hope you'll forgive me someday." I hadn't cried when I read it. I hadn't felt much of anything, really. Darren was a chapter one was finally ready to close. Epilogue, October 15th, 2023, 3 p.m. Briarwood Park, playground. I sat on a bench, watching Ethan push his newborn daughter in a stroller. Her tiny face was serene, her little hands clutching a pink blanket. Vanessa was nowhere to be seen, her legal troubles keeping her occupied elsewhere. She'd taken a plea deal for the break-in, avoiding jail time but losing custody of the child for the time being. Ethan turned to me, his face filled with quiet joy. "She's going to be okay, Mom," he said. "We all are," I replied, smiling. The cracks in our family hadn't fully healed, but we were stronger now. And as the autumn leaves fell around us, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: hope.